How did Civil War armies supply themselves at Gettysburg? Imagine being in the middle of one of the most famous battles in American history and wondering how armies kept their soldiers fed, armed, and ready to fight. During the Battle of Gettysburg, both Union and Confederate armies faced huge challenges in keeping their troops supplied. Their methods were very different, shaped by resources, infrastructure, and the strategic situation they faced. The Union Army of the Potomac had a well-organized supply system built around railroads and supply depots. They moved large amounts of food, ammunition, and other essentials from their main base in Baltimore. Supplies traveled on long wagon trains that followed the army or used alternate roads to avoid congestion. These wagons carried enough provisions for several days, so soldiers wouldn't run out during the campaign. When supplies were used up, empty wagons returned to the depots to be refilled and sent back to the front. The Union's supply officers were highly trained, and their transportation system was considered very efficient. Rail stations near the depots allowed quick movement of supplies directly to the troops, helping General Meade's army stay well supplied during and after the battle. On the other hand, the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia had a much harder time. The South had limited manufacturing and fewer railroads, which made it tough to produce and move supplies like food, shoes, tents, and weapons. Confederate quartermasters tried to buy supplies locally, contracting with farmers and manufacturers, and even buying livestock. But shortages grew worse as the campaign went on. The Union Navy's blockade also made it harder for the South to import goods from abroad. Confederate soldiers often had to forage from nearby farms to feed themselves. Lee ordered his men not to damage civilians' property, so they paid with Confederate currency or IOUs that were often worthless in the North. Towns like York, Pennsylvania, sometimes had to pay money to avoid destruction. The South's limited infrastructure and poor transportation made it difficult to keep the army supplied far from home bases. This fragile supply chain meant Confederate soldiers faced shortages and hardships during Gettysburg. The Union's better rail network and organized depots let their army keep moving and fighting effectively. Meanwhile, the Confederates relied on local requisitions and limited manufacturing, which made their supply situation more fragile. This difference in logistics played a key role in the outcome of the battle. The Union's ability to supply its troops was a major advantage, helping them hold their ground and ultimately win at Gettysburg. The Confederates' struggles with supplies reflected the broader difficulties faced by the South during the war, especially when fighting from their own supply bases. So, in simple terms, the Union Army's organized supply system and railroads kept their soldiers fed and armed, while the Confederates had to rely on local resources and struggled with shortages. This difference in logistics was a big factor in how the battle played out and what followed.